Hi my love, so I wanted to do a video today. I know I haven't done one in a very long time, but I'm not going to bore you with all of that because let's face it, I'm not the most consistent YouTuber ever. If you have been following me for a while, you will know that. I try to do it, but sometimes, you know, life happens and you can't get to film it. Especially since this isn't my full-time job, it's just a little bit harder for me to get to the time to film and edit and do all that. So today I just figured I would sit down and do a video since I haven't done one in a while and I really just miss kind of sitting down, doing my makeup and really getting like inspired and creative, because lately I noticed that I haven't really been doing that many looks as far as my eyes go, and then also the looks that I have been doing are very minimal and just pretty much just warm, neutral, brown, smoky eyes, so nothing crazy. So I figured let's get back into some color, let's get back into my old style of makeup. So what I'm going to use today is the Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes, and these are the Prism and the Subculture palettes. So I wanted to use these two today in particular because a lot of negative controversy has been surrounding these palettes, the Subculture in particular, and I figured what better way to come back into YouTube than to give you guys tips and tricks on how to use these palettes. Now, I am a smaller YouTuber, so hopefully there is no controversy or is no issue as to whether or not I actually bought these. But if you were confused on that, I did buy these with my own money. I wanted to see if that I could get them to work for me, since there are people who found that they do like the Subculture. I figured why not see if I can make it work, and if I can make it work, what are the ways in which I had to change my makeup routine to get it to work. So I'm hopefully going to be able to give you guys some tips on how to use them, and hopefully if you do have this palette or you were interested in picking it up, you will get some useful information out of this video. So I don't know the exact look that I'm going to go for. We're just going to kind of play around with makeup since I really haven't thought this out too much, other than I want to showcase these palettes. So bear with me a little bit. I also don't know if this is going to be a voiceover or a talk through, so bear with me as far as the editing goes. I'm really just trying to figure out how I want to do this video. It's been a minute, so gotta get back into the swing of things. So if you want to see what look I came up with and how these perform on the face, just keep on watching. Alrighty, so I went ahead and primed my eyes, and I used the NYX Lid Lingerie Matte Eye Tint in the shade Revel, and it's just a neutral kind of base. And I use this because if you do have any patchiness that comes across with these shadows, having a color down or a neutral base down is really going to help conceal that a little bit. So what I did was apply that all over my lid and patted it in, and now I'm going to go ahead and start on the actual eye look. So for my lid color, since I do have drier lids, I do find that I like to use more shimmery kind of eyeshadows. I'm going to go ahead and use the Prism palette for that since they have more options here, and I'm going to take the shade Dimension, which is this purpley shade right here. It's kind of like a cool tone grayish purple, and the reflex are kind of like a pinky tone. So I'm taking that and I'm using a flat brush for that. Sometimes I use my fingers, sometimes I use a brush, it really depends. These shadows do get a hard pan really easily, so I necessarily wouldn't recommend you use your fingers, just because the oils from your fingers can really make the hard pan happen a lot faster. So I'm just going to apply this all over the lid. And I'm also doing something different since I don't normally do my lids first. I normally work from the brow bone down, but I kind of want to see how this works with these shadows using this technique. So we're going to go ahead and apply this, and then I'll move on into the crease. Now that I have my base color down, I'm going to go ahead and start building up my crease shades. So the first shade that I'm going to use is Lure, and it's this kind of dusty mauve rosy tone right here. I'm going to stick to more purpley tones in this palette. I do love the greens, and I will do a look with the greens if you would like me to, but I've been wearing these palettes for a few days now, and I find that I've been using the greens mostly, so I want to see what I can get with some of the other shades. And one thing I will recommend, now this is where I'm going to start giving you guys the tips on how to use these palettes. I do recommend with the Anastasia palettes to use a brush that's very, very, very soft. So something that's more synthetic, or even just like a goat-haired white brush. Nothing that's like, if I can find it, the MAC 217, or not 217, 224 rather. Nothing that's like this, that's a little bit harsher. The bristles are a little bit more stiff. They're a little bit more like pokey in a sense. I find that these don't work the best with these shadows. And the reason for that, I think, is the harder the pressure you use, the harder these shadows are to blend and the harder that it is to keep them on the lids. A very light hand is what you need to kind of keep the color and the pigment stuck to your lid and to blend it out and buff it out really nicely. So I found that these kind of brushes, especially like the MAC 217s, this is the Sigma E25, any kind of brush like this, or even like the synthetic ones that like Real Techniques has, all of these are going to be really good brushes to use with these palettes. So anything that's soft, and in addition you want to use a soft hand, so don't go in and just start blending. Just do it very lightly and take your time. These are not palettes that are going to be fast to use. These are ones that you do have to take your time with. Alrighty, so now that I have all of that down, I'm going to go ahead into the Subculture palette now, and I'm taking this shade right here, which is called All Star. It's just a maroon type shade, and I'm picking it up onto the same brush, and I'll start to pat it down first to kind of get it where I want it. Now, the Subculture is the palette that does have the most issues, so again, you want to go very lightly at first, and then just kind of place the color where you want it, and then just lightly buff it out. And build it up slightly, go little by little, because with this, I feel like there is a lot of pigment, the shadows are very pigmented, and it can get really muddy and out of hand very fast. So you want to kind of work slowly and build up the color, rather than just slapping on a bunch of color and trying to blend away any excess. So I want to talk about the issue of oxidation with these shadows, since I know that is a big deal that a lot of people have been having. But as I'm doing that, I'm going to go in with the shade Rowdy, which is this deep plummy purple shade, and I'm going to apply this basically where we put that All-Star shade, just to kind of add definition, but I'm going to focus it more along the lash line and just pull up any excess to blend it out into the crease. So the issue with oxidation that I find is that some of the shades, especially some of the yellows and some of the greens, they do have an issue where when you apply them to the lid, they get slightly darker than they look like in the pan. Now, this is a little bit off-putting because people are worried that it's gonna keep getting darker, or you're gonna have like a really weird tone coming onto your eyes, in addition to the fact that people want what the color looks like in the pan to show up on their eyes, because when I'm picking out a color, all I have to go off of is what it looks like in the pan. Now, I get the issue with wanting it to look that way, but for me, I find that the oxidation issue actually does happen the exact same way each time you use the shadows. So when I use like New Wave or Edge and I apply them to my lids, no matter what day it is, no matter what primer I use, I find that they oxidize the same. So for me, I just know what these colors look like on my eyes and I base it off of that. Now, you will have to play around with them a bit in the beginning to get an understanding as to how they work and what they look like on your eyes and for your skin tone. But I don't find that it's that big of an issue where they aren't workable or you're gonna get looks that you weren't anticipating, because really all these shadows oxidize towards is a deeper version of the color, and for the yellows a little bit more brown. So that's really the only issue that I've noticed so far. I don't think that it's that big of a deal for me, since again they oxidize the same each time. So whatever color you tend to get on your lids with these colors is what you're gonna get every single time you use them. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, but it is something to consider. So what I'm going to do again is just kind of apply this to my outer corners and just start buffing it in. And as you can see, I'm using a very, very light hand. I'm barely touching my lid. And you can see I'm not having any issues with it blending or looking seamless or smooth. They really just blend very well over each other when you use these methods. So now that I have all of that done, I'm going to work on the highlight shade, and I did apply it to the side already, so hopefully you guys can see it a little bit. What I'm using today is the shade Cube by Subculture, or in the Subculture palette, and I do want to say I don't recommend either of the highlight shades in these palettes, and the reason for that is a lot of them, or majority of the ones that I've seen, really are basically like a sparkle top coat. They don't have a lot of pigment in their base shade, so like for Electric that would be the green, for Cube cube, that would be the white. I don't feel like those bases are that pigmented. So what you're really going to notice is the sheen that you get as far as the duochrome or the reflex. So I'll show you guys what I mean by that. And what I'm going to do is just pick it up onto a flat brush and apply it on the highest point of my arch. And as you can see, you notice that pink reflex, but not much of that white base. So these aren't my favorite to use as a highlight shade because I like my highlight to really buff out the edges of the other colors I have in my crease. And I find that part of the way highlight shades work is they cover up the crease shade. So what it does is if your crease shade goes too high up, it'll cover it up in addition to blending it out. So for me, if I was to kind of blend too far up, I don't think that these shades are really going to do it for me. But it's really personal preference. If you aren't somebody who likes a super stark highlight, or you are somebody who likes that kind of just very subtle sheen, you are going to like these. But for me and my preference in makeup, it's not my cup of tea. So now that I have that placed, I'm going to go ahead and finish off my skin, except for like my cheek colors. I'm just going to do my foundation and concealer and stuff, and then I'm going to come back and I'll work on the lower lash line and give you guys an update on how they work on the lower lash line. So give me 2 seconds and I'll be right back. Alrighty, so apologies, I did end up pretty much finishing the rest of my face off camera. I just figured I wanted to focus on the eyes today and focus on the palettes, so I will go over what I used on my face, but not necessarily like how I applied them. So what I'm going to do now is work on the lower lash line so I can finish up the eyes and go on and move to the rest of the face. So the first thing that I did to do the lower lash line is I took that shade Lure again that we used in the crease, and I'm going to apply this along the lower lash line just with a flat shader brush. And just kind of buff it around. And this is going to be a transition type shade. And once I have that, I'm going to go in with the shade Osiris, I believe is it called. I'll show you guys. Hopefully you guys can read that. So I'm going to take that color and I'm going to apply this along the lower lash line again, just to deepen it up and kind of marry it to the top lid colors. And I'm just gonna like lightly go over this. So being completely honest, I don't know how I'm going to edit this so that it's not super choppy and looks like it just cut off randomly in the last clip, but basically all I did, if it cuts off really weird, is I did my liner and my lashes, and now I'm just going to explain what I did for my cheeks. So for my blush today, I used the Essence Blush Up Powder Blush in the shade number 20, Pinky Flow, and it's just a very pinky tone blush. It complements the eyes really, really well by keeping in that same color family. Then for my bronzer today, kind of contoury bronzer, I used the City Color Baked Blush, but I used it in the shade Bronze. This to me gives a very nice bronzer tone. It's one of my favorites, especially when I'm doing a more cool toned eye, because it does pull a little bit cooler on my skin than I normally use. I normally use very goldeny shades for my bronzer instead of something that's a lot more red and a little bit cooler toned. So this for me works a lot better when I'm using something that's like a cooler tone on the eyes. Then for my highlight, I'm using the Wet n Wild Color Icon Ombre Blush, and this is in the shade In a Purple Haze, so it's the purpley tone, and I just applied that to the highest points of my face. So now that I have that, I'm gonna go ahead and apply some false lashes. So I'm just gonna pull my little tray of false lashes down, and the ones that I'm gonna use today, I don't have the exact number, but they're by LA Colors, and they're Dramatalash, I believe. And these, I believe, are in the shade, or not the shade, the style Dainty. I could be wrong because I don't have the packaging anymore, but they look like this, and I'll kind of hold it up so that you guys can see. So they're very light lashes. They're not going to apply or add any like extra crazy volume, but they will add a little bit of a bump, and they'll add a bit of length. So if you are somebody who doesn't have very long lashes, these are the kind of styles you might want to gravitate towards, because it won't add too much volume where it looks very dramatic and crazy, but it's going to add enough length to just bump up the look. So the way that I'm going to apply these today, since I'm not really going out, normally I would use hair glue, which yes, I use hair glue. I've recently discovered this. I've discovered it from Beat Face Honey here on YouTube, but there's also a bunch of people that I know personally that use it, so I actually really like that, and that would be my normal go-to. But since I'm not using this for that long or wearing this makeup for that long, I'm going to just use my regular lash glue. This doesn't stick as well as the hair glue, but it is still a good lash glue, and it's the the Strip Lash Adhesive with Aloe by Kiss, and it's the black version. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop these on off camera since I'm not the best at false lashes, and then I'll come back and show you guys what it looks like Alrighty, so now that I have an audience, I'm gonna try and finish this up really quickly. Let me zoom in so that I can show you guys what the final look came out to be. This is with the lashes. I ended up not using the lash glue that I expected. I just used the white hair glue. You can find it at any Sally's Beauty Supply. It honestly works better and it's a lot faster to use, so I just used that. So that is pretty much it for this look. Sorry I look kind of crazy. It is literally 2 o'clock in the morning. If you have any questions on anything that I used today, or if you want any more tips and tricks on these two palettes or to see other looks with them, let me know in the comment section below. All of my information to all of my social media, my email and things will be listed off below, as well as the beginning and end of this video. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it wasn't too rambly trying to get all this information out to you. And yeah, I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hi.
Bye to the audience.